welcome to Raptors Weekly for the week of January the 25th. The Raptors have won 8 games in a row, and Gavin MacPherson makes his podcast debut to talk about those 8 games, and then some, very likely, because we face the Wizards, Knicks, and a bunch of other crappy teams right after that. So, first things first, welcome Gavin to the Rapcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
All right, man. So, on the broadcast tonight against the Clippers, they mentioned that the last time the Raptors had won 8 in a row was like years ago, and in the highlights they showed Chris Childs was in the highlight pack shooting threes, and there was some JYD action. Alvin Williams was seen as well. Do you remember where you were the last time the Raptors won so many games in a row?
I don't remember where I was, but I do remember that happening because I remember being really surprised because I think the general thought was that without Carter in the lineup or without Carter on the roster, they were going to kind of just fold down the stretch, and they just kind of proved everybody wrong and went on this great tear to make the playoffs. But I don't remember much specifics beyond that. I mean, that's a long time ago. I hardly remember like 3 months ago.
Yeah, I do remember like you that it wasn't an expected 8-game winning streak. It was more very surprising coming out of the blue when everybody had counted the Raptors out. However, this time around, this is an 8-game winning streak which has really kind of caught the NBA not by storm, by surprise, and or I don't know, it feels really good because after the Cleveland loss, which is when this streak started, the Raptors lost that game 122-100. It was JV's first game back, and at the time it was like, oh, we just lost a big game against Cleveland. This came on the heels of losing twice to Chicago, and we were like kind of down on the confidence. The team was 21-15 at the time. And holy smokes, man, since then, it's been Brooklyn, Washington, Philly, Orlando, Brooklyn, Boston, Miami, LA. And if you thought that the Raptors were beating up on some shitty teams, the last 2 wins against Miami and LA, they were convincing.
Yeah, they absolutely were. And I mean, I think that the road win in Washington was really impressive as well. And Orlando, like, they're not a great team, but they're no pushover. Like, they're still a quality team, and they still give teams a run for their money. So I think there have been some really good wins in the streak.
Yeah, didn't Orlando lose to Philly though? That was surprising. That was.
Yeah, but I mean, the good thing about the Philly game is that that's a game that I feel like they would have lost last year. Like with the way that they came out and everything like that, like I feel like that's a game that they would have ended up losing last year. So the fact that they won this year shows some progression.
So let's talk about the Clippers game, which is the one that ended about half an hour ago or so. That was the 8th game in a row the Raptors have won. This was probably the toughest game so far in this home stretch. The Clippers were without Blake Griffin, but again the Raptors have their own set of injuries with DeMar Carroll. A convincing win, a comprehensive win, I should say. The first quarter was a little iffy, but after that the Raptors were really dominant in some key stretches to put this one away. And when the Clippers did make their runs, it was almost like the Raptors just took it up a little bit higher, went to a little higher gear and put the Clippers away rather easily. And the bench had probably a lot to do about that.
Yeah, well, I think that they kind of understood what you have to do against the Clippers, which is just wait until they put their bench in. Like their bench is really, really bad, or at least their bench doesn't really play well with their starters. So all you have to do really is just wait out Chris Paul. Like they'll play well while they have Paul and they have Jordan, they have Redick. But as soon as Chris Paul sits down, you're probably going to go on a run. So, let them get their shots in. And then when Chris Paul sits down, your bench can take care of their bench, and you're probably going to win if you do that.
Yeah, it was 51-29, the bench scoring totals in this game in favor of the Raptors. And even when Chris Paul was in there, it wasn't like he was dominating. Kyle Lowry was pretty much playing him even, and they ended up with Lowry had 21 and Paul basically had 23. So that canceled out as well.
It really did, yeah. It was Jordan that was kind of the big trouble point, but even he, once the Raptors got past that early rough stretch, they really settled him down as well.
Yeah. And again, the counter to that was JV, who was 8 for 11 for 20 points, and Jordan had 15. I noticed in the second half there were a couple of moves that JV pulled against Jordan. One was that left hook he made. The other was a drop step or something. And it really caught Jordan by surprise that this guy would even attempt to do something like that against a elite defender like Jordan. And when JV scored so easily, Jordan, you could tell, just complained to the refs about like a dipped shoulder or something like that, which is what every Clipper does. They whine a lot. And I thought those two moves by JV really kind of took Jordan mentally a little out of the game.
Yeah, I don't think that he was prepared for the stuff that Jonas has added to his game, especially the way that he's really effective with his pump fake and then going. So like if you give him, like if you move up even an inch on that pump fake, he's ready to blow by you. Adding that face-off game, working with Sigma in the offseason, with Jack Sigma in the offseason, and getting that face-up game going has really, really helped him a lot with guys like Jordan.
Do you think he's hesitating less this year?
I think that the game has kind of slowed down for him. I think that he's seeing things a lot better. I think that it's not so much that he's hesitating less, it's that he's seeing things happen slower because it's more familiar to him. Like he's still just a 23-year-old. He's still learning everything. So I think that it's just a matter of just him kind of realizing, yes, I've seen this situation before and now I know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And since his injury, again, the first game was Cleveland, and after that, JV's been just phenomenal. The Raptors are like 8-1 with him. In this streak, he's shooting 55%, 13 points and 10 rebounds, basically averaging a double-double in this streak. And remember when he came back, there was some talk that, maybe we should stick with Biyombo in the lineup because the team's playing kind of okay. There's just no talk of that anymore.
Yeah, I was surprised that it was happening to begin with. The relationship that Raptors fans have with Valanciunas is kind of weird sometimes in that, like, I don't think I've ever seen a fan base less excited about a promising young center. Like, I feel like if anybody else had a center who was 23, averaging a double-double, showing progression every year like Jonas does, they would just be all over him. But Raptors fans, they seem to think, like a lot of them seem to think that the team would actually be better without him. And I just really don't understand. But I really do think he shut a lot of people up during the streak because even when he's not hitting his shots, he's blocking shots. He's passing the ball better than he's ever passed it. He had like 4 consecutive games with multiple assists. He's never had that before in his career. So he's seeing the floor a lot better. He's learning how to contribute in multiple ways, and I think that he's really kind of establishing himself as a building block for the team.
Yeah, I totally agree. And why do you think that is? Why do you think Raptor fans underrate him so much? Is it because the way the NBA is going with the emphasis on three-point shooting, that's the one thing he can't do? And Will always makes this point that Jonas seems like a relic of an NBA of days gone past. And I always disagree with it because you can always find a room for talent. But like, why do you think that is?
I'm not really sure, and I don't think I buy the rationale that it's because he's an old school kind of player, because there's nobody on the Raptors roster who's more old school than DeRozan, and everybody loves him. Like, yeah. DeRozan is a guard straight out of the 80s. So I mean, if they're embracing him, then they're not embracing Valanciunas because he has kind of an old school game. Doesn't really make sense. I think it's just because when Jonas makes a mistake or when Jonas does something wrong, it's really obvious. Whereas a lot of the things that he does really well are kind of subtle. Yeah. So like when somebody blows by him in pick and roll coverage, that's something that's kind of burned into your memory. But when he alters the next 4 shots, you don't really remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's this bias that we have against JV. I don't know what it is. I always tend to hold him to a higher standard than maybe I should. And I can't really explain why. And whereas when DeMar DeRozan makes a mistake or takes a bad shot, we tend to look the other way or give him a pass. But with JV, somehow we just have, I don't know if it's higher standards or more skewed standards, but whatever it is, he does get evaluated through a very different lens.
Yeah, he really does. And it might be because some people do believe that the game is moving away from big men. But I think if anything, that's a reason to keep him and develop him, because if the game isn't moving in that direction, he becomes something that's harder for teams to counter. Yeah. It's what's the zigzag theory. So basically everybody's moving in one direction, you move in the other because you're going to get better assets, cheaper assets going that way.
Yeah, let's talk about DeRozan. He's been he's going to probably make the All-Star team, and we'll talk about that in a bit.
Hopefully.
But in this streak, he's upped his scoring here to 26 points per game. This is from 23 prior to that, and he's shooting 45% from the field, 33% from 3. Beyond the stats, what have you noticed from DeRozan over these last 8 games?
Well, I think that he's still doing a good job of not settling as much as he used to. Tonight wasn't really a good example of that. I feel like he did kind of settle for some mid-range jumpers that he probably shouldn't have taken, but a lot of that was when he was with the bench and there wasn't really a lot of other options. The other thing that I see is that he seems to be a lot more comfortable shooting from outside when he has time to step into it. Like, he'll never be, Ray Allen or Kyle Korver, but if he's given space and he's allowed to kind of step into it, put his whole body into the shot, he seems a lot more comfortable with it.
Yeah. And I've also noticed that he's not as bothered by good defenders anymore. I think before, when you put a a really tough guy who plays tight defense on him, he tended to kind of give way and take the shots that the defense wanted him to take. Now I feel that he's a lot more patient. Against Miami, we saw this when Gerald Green was checking him, or I don't know who else was guarding him in that game. Wade was on him a couple times. It was just whoever the Heat threw at him tried to like push him out of his comfort zone beyond the 3-point line, but he didn't react negatively to it. He actually took his time, got to the area where he wanted to go in that mid-range area, and then took the shot that he wanted. Maybe a year and a half ago, you would see him force a lot of 21-22 footers and get frustrated, but this time there's a bit of a change there.
Oh yeah, there absolutely is, and I think that one of the big things is that he's recognizing like how to approach certain matchups too. Like there were times in the past where he'd have somebody like Jay Crowder on him, and Jay is bigger than him, and he would still try to take him down to the post. And he's doing a better job of recognizing like these bigger guys, I can't necessarily do that with them, but I can come off a screen from Valanciunas or from Patterson or from Biyombo, and I can get some separation that way. And so he's learning kind of, how to attack different defenders instead of just doing the same thing to everybody.
Yeah, and his mid-range game is at a pretty good clip right now, where he's able to sell his fake. So you see him get to the free throw line 9 times against the Celtics. Against the Clippers, didn't really need to do that, but against Miami, he went to the line like 6 times. So he's getting the efficient scoring from mid range while still going to the line, and that's been in the past. He's relied a lot on making sure he gets fouled and gets to the line. Now you see a shift that the line is becoming almost secondary, and his primary scoring is just hitting those mid range J's.
Yeah, or even just getting to the rim. Like that's the thing that he's doing the best this year. Like that's the thing that's his really like I think he's recognized that's his elite skill is getting to the rim and finishing. That's what he's one of the best in the league at. And so he's making a huge effort to just do that as often as possible. Yeah. So whereas before, like I think the mid-range jumper was kind of a primary weapon, now he's using it to set up everything else.
Yeah. Did you see his left-handed finish again when he blew his hand after, I think, was it Miami where he did that?
I don't recall the play off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was like he drove, and I think it was against Miami, and he drove against 3 defenders and scooped it in with his left hand, and then kind of looked at his hand and goes, "Yeah, you're almost there, buddy. You're almost there." So we'll talk about his All-Star credentials just momentarily, but let's talk about Kyle Lowry, who got the All-Star nod, 90K vote turnaround in the final week. There was some talk about that Drake didn't tweet him, and in my weekly column I wrote that. Well, if Drake didn't tweet Kyle Lowry NBA vote, that's because Drake already knows he doesn't need to tweet. And sure enough, he did not need to, because he comfortably beat Kyrie Irving. And maybe some of this happened because during the last day of the voting, Kyrie Irving was getting pounced by 43 points by the Golden State Warriors while the Raptors were winning. So congratulations to Kyle Lowry.
Absolutely. He absolutely deserves it. I'm really, really happy for him. I think it's great for him, and I think it's great for the Raptors as a whole.
Yeah. It's his second straight appearance as a starter, and second straight time he's actually made the final week of voting count. Last year he trumped Dwayne Wade, who had a sizable lead on him, and this year Kyle Lowry. And there's a lot of developing chemistry between DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. And I think if you check out the social media posts, you see these guys are actually very close, like genuine good friends. And maybe you haven't. The Raptors have never had that. And one funny moment was when they were in Brooklyn. They were playing. Not Brooklyn. They were playing the Magic in London when this exchange happened. I'll just play it back for you.
This will be my third week. I'm trying to walk out of here 1-3. Honestly, they played 3 games. This will be my third game here. So 1 and 2. No, I don't. No, wait.
If you play 2 games and you add 1, that means
3 games.
Yeah, but you said 1 and 3.
If we win,
1-4-3. 1-4-3. 1-4-3 or 1 and 2?
That's what I meant.
1-4-3. Oh, 1 for 3.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
USC, baby.
I ain't even go to college that night.
That was pretty funny, man.
It really was. I kind of wish that DeRozan was still kind of the low volume player he was, because there'd be a really good joke in there about his counting and his shooting statistics being related. But he's kind of proven that wrong this year, and he's really upped his efficiency.
Yeah. So have you seen a camaraderie between the 2 Raptor players in the past to the degree where Lowry and DeRozan are today?
Absolutely not. It's actually kind of weird because maybe a couple of weeks ago, I was doing some research for something that I want to write about the post Vince Carter Raptors, like the immediate post Vince Carter era, and like the Raptors back then were a huge mess. Like in a 2-year span, they had, I think, 8 players request a trade, and players were fighting with each other. Players were bickering in the media. They were quarreling with the coaches and everything like that. And it was just kind of a state of chaos. And so it's really good to see everything kind of on an even keel, and everybody's getting along. Everybody's having a good time. Even somebody like James Johnson, who doesn't feel necessarily that he's being used properly, he still seems to be in positive spirits most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with DeMar DeRozan being out, he's getting some playing time, and he's producing. It's not, I wrote in my column that when I call for James Johnson to play, it's actually not because of his offense. It's not because of his defense, but his offense. And against the Clippers, he had a really good strong move where he finished a pick and roll like really nicely with Kyle Lowry. And like overall, what do you make of James Johnson and Terrence Ross, who have been the biggest beneficiary in terms of minutes with DeMar DeRozan being out? Terrence Ross in this game was magnificent. 18 points in 33 minutes. He had 5 for 7 from 3-point line. James Johnson got the start, but played 15 minutes. Give me your thoughts on Ross so far. Like, do you think he's turned it around, and this is what you're going to see? This is the product that you expect to see going forward?
I don't think that we're ever going to see kind of one Terrence Ross. Like, I think that you're always going to see at various times, you're going to see the Terrence Ross you're seeing now. You're also going to see the Terrence Ross that we saw in November. Like, those two guys are always going to exist, and it's just going to be a matter of trying to figure out ways to kind of minimize the bad and maximize the good, or figure out like what makes him tick. Like, it really seems to be kind of a confidence issue, because when his shot's not hitting, like he tends to just stand there on offense. He tends to just kind of like play at half speed on defense. His focus seems to go away. So I don't know if it's just a matter of getting him better shots so that he can be more involved, be more energetic. But I think that unless they find a way to do that, this is just who Terrence Ross is going to be. It's just going to be feast or famine all the time.
Yeah. But the one thing that I don't get is that today he had a spectacular defensive game. He had a couple of lockdowns on Chris Paul where Paul tried to make a pass and he jumped up and just caught it out of the air and ran it back. He had a couple of steals that way. He had 4 steals in this game. Very active hands. What I don't get about Terrence Ross is that I totally get it, that offense can be up and down. It doesn't really matter. It's just the flow of which you're in at the moment. Maybe it's a bad month or a bad week, whatever. I get that. It's the defensive up and down that I never was able to reconcile with Terrence Ross, because the way he played defense today, or the way he has been playing defense over the last 2-3 weeks, that's something that should be fairly consistent.
It should be ideally, but I don't think that it always works out that way. I think it's kind of just like a human thing where if things aren't going your way, it can affect your effort all over the place. And I think that that's kind of how it manifests with Terrence Ross, and that if things aren't going his way on offense, it really affects the way that he plays on defense as well. And I think it works the other way too. Like if he's getting lit up by somebody, like, when he was having trouble guarding Joe Johnson in the playoffs, I think that really threw off his offensive game as well, because it killed his confidence.
Yeah. Joe Johnson has scarred a lot of people over the years.
Yep. Johnson and Pierce both did that to him.
Yeah. But did you enjoy DeRozan going at Pierce today and scoring on him a couple of times, sending him to the bench on a couple of and ones?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think a lot of it might be because of how old Pierce is at this point, but I'll take the victories when we can get them.
Still, it's not bad.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's a little bit of revenge. Like that's one of the things with DeRozan this year, is that he seems to be on a little bit of a revenge tour as well. Like he's made it very clear that his performances against the Wizards weren't a coincidence. Like he wanted revenge from last year. So I have no doubt that going at Pierce this year was the same thing.
Let's talk about the streak. It's at 8 games right now, and let's see where it might end. Let's just see how it is. You got 3 more home games on this homestand. The Raptors so far are 4-0. And they got 3 more games coming up on this homestand. It's Washington on Tuesday, the Knicks on Thursday, and Saturday they got Detroit. So no back-to-backs here. 3 teams that you might say are mediocre. Washington they've beaten 3 times. The Knicks are obviously not a great team, but at the same time they have lost to the Knicks at home. And Detroit is up and down, capable of beating Golden State one night and actually losing to just pick anybody you want. You think we can go 3-0 here and sweep the homestand?
Yeah, I don't think that the streak ends until the Raptors hit the road. I don't see it ending in Toronto.
Yeah, you don't really.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The team is just playing really well right now, and I don't see any of the other teams really being able to step. Like the Wizards, I'm pretty sure they're still without Beal, so that's like they're kind of hobbled. The Knicks are missing Lance Thomas, and they're missing him a lot more than I think they thought they would. And I think that Melo might still be a little bit hobbled from injuries. So like there's all these things working against the teams that they're going up against, and I think they can go ahead and they can win out.
Okay, so let's talk about the other angle here. The Raptors are 2 games back of the Cavs. The Cavs are 30-12. The Raptors are 29-15. So 3 back in the loss column, but 2 games back in the standings. So we're talking about this because whoever finishes first in the East on January 31st gets to coach the All-Star team. And with the Cavaliers firing David Black. By the way, did not know that the firing of David Black caused in Israel, apparently for the first time in months, Middle East violence was not the number one news story. It was actually the Cavaliers firing David Blatt. Did you know that?
No, I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting, though. A lot of people think that they weren't paying attention to David Blatt, or they didn't care about him because he wasn't Israeli born or anything like that. But I mean, obviously they did care.
They did a lot, and it's actually a huge deal in Israel that this has happened. A travesty is what it's being called, mostly because the Cavaliers are number one in the East at 30-12, or 30-11 when Blatt left them, it seems like LeBron's basically got his friend Tyronn Lue in there, who has been groomed for this position for quite some time.
It kind of does, yeah. I think that it's an interesting move. I don't necessarily agree with it because I don't see what Lue is going to bring to the table that Blatt doesn't. But I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because it's kind of a referendum. Like everybody says that it's LeBron's decision. Regardless of what LeBron actually says, everybody says that it was his decision to get rid of Blatt. So this is kind of like a referendum on LeBron. Like this is going to be about whether he made the right decision or not. And I mean, with how they played in that first game without Blatt, it's not really off to a good start.
Yeah. So piggybacking on that point, the Raptors right now have 3 games left in January: Washington, New York, and Detroit. And if you look at the Cavaliers, they also have, let me just look at their schedule here, confirm. Yeah, so they have 4 games left: Minnesota, Phoenix, Detroit, and the Spurs. And the difference is 2 games. What do you think? Can we do it?
I think that the Raptors have a chance at catching the Cavaliers. I think that if the Cavaliers were thinking that getting rid of Blatt was going to turn their season around or suddenly improve whatever was not working with them, I think that they're pretty mistaken about that. So I think that if they're taking the Raptors lightly, the Raptors really have a chance at catching up to them because their problems. The Cavs' problems, a lot of them have to do with complementary personnel and utilizing everybody correctly. I don't think installing a coach mid-season is the way to resolve those kinds of issues. So the Raptors definitely have a shot.
Yeah, but before January 31st, the Cavaliers basically have to lose 3 out of 4 games. And they got the Spurs, who they might lose, and then it's Detroit, Phoenix, and Minnesota, but I just don't see it happening. But I don't think we'll see Dwane Casey coach the All-Star game this year. Maybe in future years, maybe. And one point that was raised on the broadcast today was Coach of the Year. I know it's early, but Dwane Casey is would you call him a front runner for the award at this point? Like who's done a better job than him, not named Luke Walton?
I would say that the biggest surprise is probably the Nuggets. So I would say that Mike Malone has a shot because I don't think anybody expected them to be as competitive as they are and as good as they are. They're not in the playoff hunt, but they're kind of sniffing around
500.
it. Yeah, they're doing really, really well. I think the thing that would hinder Casey is that the Raptors they'll
the Nuggets,
probably
dude?
improve a little bit, but they're going to win maybe 3 or 4 games more than they did last year. I don't think that kind of lift is going to be enough to get him Coach of the Year.
The Nuggets? They're 10 games under 500.
Yeah, but nobody expected them to be there. The thing with Casey is that the Raptors maybe will improve by 2 or 3 wins. If he wasn't in the running for Coach of the Year before, I don't think that improving by less than a handful of wins is going to get him into contention for that.
Okay, fair enough. I think
maybe Stan Van Gundy would be a better shot, or would have a better shot, or something like that. But I really don't see Casey getting it.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. I think the other angle you can take is that he's got pretty much a brand new bench with Corey Joseph, Bismack Biyombo. Then he got a key addition in DeMar Carroll. So how he's integrated these 3 players who've also been injured a lot. Valanciunas has been injured. That's he's had some coaching and decisions to make, and so far sitting pretty at second in the conference is not a bad place to be.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it depends on how the season plays out. I think the real thing, like the real referendum on him, is going to be how they perform in the playoffs, and unfortunately, by that time, the award's going to be decided.
Yeah, that's I never actually liked that. Just never got the whole regular season MVP, because by everybody's admission, the regular season is a time where a lot of players and teams essentially coast, and I don't know, it just never made sense, because there is no award for a playoff MVP, is there? It's just the NBA Finals MVP. You got that one, but there's no playoff MVP, and I think there's a gap there between a regular season where players are playing at maybe 70%, 80%. And the playoffs where everybody's zoned in at 100%, but you only award an MVP award for the finals, and there's like 3 other rounds where just nobody kind of talks about.
Yeah, and I think that the reason that doesn't really work for Casey is that there's really kind of a wait and see thing with Casey, where no matter how good the regular season performance is, everybody remembers the last 2 playoff runs.
Right.
So there's always going to be the skepticism about him.
Yeah, and same here. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about this 8-game win streak, and hopefully it continues. But it could go to 16, and my opinion on the team would not change. I think what I would say is that I'd feel more confident that we'd be able to win a playoff round. But at the same time, you could have 60 wins and lose in the first round of the playoffs, and it's all for nothing.
Yeah, I think that the really interesting thing about that is that we don't really know what the Raptors have planned as far as coaching goes. Like they might be planning to get rid of Dwane Casey, and it would be interesting if they have that in their minds right now, and then he wins Coach of the Year, because that kind of forces them to extend him, regardless.
That's the Sam Mitchell
I can't
situation.
see the Raptors letting him go if he wins Coach of the Year.
Well, that's what happened to Sam Mitchell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, George Karl, I believe did he win Coach of the Year before he was let go? I know he won 57 games. I don't remember if he won Coach of the Year or not, but he was let go immediately after. So there is a precedent saying that they could let him go, but I don't think the Raptors are that kind of organization. They have a history of, if you perform well immediately before your contract is up, you'll get another contract.
All right, so let's take a short break and come back after this.
When I started practicing law years ago, I noticed very quickly that the cards were stacked against innocent accident victims. That's not right. That's why my law firm is dedicated to working exclusively on behalf of those who need it the most. I'm Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. When you're in an accident, we can help you get the compensation you deserve. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Rapcast. Gavin MacPherson is joining the Rapcast today. You wrote an article for the site last week where you talked about the Raptors' offense being good, but at the same time you threw some words of caution. What was that all about?
Well, the Raptors' offense is really weird in that, like technically it is good. Like in terms of just pure offensive production, it's good. Points per possession, they're one of the top teams in the league, and they generally have been under Casey. But the way that they get those points seems a little bit off. It's a lot of free throws. It's a lot of one-on-one play. They seem to waste a lot of time. Like they initiate a lot of their sets with passes that don't really do much for them. And then so they find themselves battling the shot clock a lot. And so it's good, but I guess the thing is that it could be better. It's not an elite offense, and I feel like maybe it could be with some tweaks to the strategy if they get into things a little bit faster, if they move the ball a little bit more, if they include everybody else, if they include everybody who isn't Lowry and DeRozan a little bit more. I feel like it could get even better.
Yeah. So the clips you posted in that article were quite informative, and as I was watching the game today, I noticed some of that action as well. So listener, if you're watching the Raptors, just notice the first 2 to 3 passes they make on the possession. It has very little to do with the outcome of the possession. It's almost like they pass it around out of boredom or routine before they actually get into their set offense. It doesn't happen on every possession, obviously, but generally that is the case. And if you contrast that with some of the other offenses, I think in your post, I think you picked the Atlanta Hawks. But if you pick any of the top offenses in the league, the top 5-6 offense, you don't see that kind of behavior. Even the Kings games I was watching the other day with Rajon Rondo and how they initiate their offense, it's very direct. They don't really waste much time before they get into exactly what they're doing. Whereas the Raptors, they flirt around and probe a little bit more before they actually end up doing what they had in mind originally.
Yeah, like they do this one thing at the beginning of sets where they'll have somebody on the wing, like James Johnson or DeRozan. They'll loop around the outside. Like they'll go along the baseline, come up to the 3-point line, catch a pass from Lowry, and then immediately pass it back to him and continue to loop around. And that doesn't shift the defense at all. It doesn't really give them any kind of advantage. I have no idea why they do it. It just takes like 5 or 6 seconds off the shot clock, and suddenly like they're trying to get into their primary offensive action with 14 seconds left. And that means that if it doesn't work, then they don't really have time for any kind of counter or anything like that. And I think if they can get rid of that kind of thing, I think that they would become an elite offensive team. Like I don't think they would be as good as the Warriors or the Spurs necessarily, but I think that they would be in between the rest of the league in that.
Yeah. All right, so let's switch to the Celtics game a little bit. It saw the return of Amir Johnson, and unlike many Raptor fans, he happens to be one of your favorite players as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that as far as like not just rating them on basis of play, but what they've meant to the organization and what they meant to Toronto, I think that he might be the best Raptor of all time, the greatest Raptor of all time, just because like all the community building that he did, like he was there through the bad times. And he was part of building it up to being a good team. Like I think that if it weren't for the contributions of guys like Amir Johnson, you wouldn't have the Raptors where they are right now. Like I don't necessarily think that maybe Kyle Lowry would have stuck around. Like it wouldn't have been an attractive location for them. But through the efforts of Amir building up that fan base, building up goodwill with the city of Toronto, I think that he was really, really a big part of building up what the Raptors have become.
Did you agree with replacing him with Luis Scola?
In terms of like from a basketball standpoint, no. I think that the Raptors would be a much better team if they had Amir, but I understand it from a financial standpoint. The Raptors weren't going to give him that money, and I'm really glad that somebody did. Of anybody in the NBA, like I think that he deserved that payday. Like he was, for what he delivered, he was underpaid by the Raptors. Yeah. So I'm glad that he's finally getting the money that I feel like he deserved all along.
Yeah, I think he got a 2-year deal, $12 million for the first year. The second one, I believe, is not guaranteed, but still he got a pretty good payday, and another good contract by Brian Colangelo, who gets vilified a lot around these places, rightfully so for some of the things he's done. But again, with the DeMar DeRozan, Amir Johnson, these are two fantastic contracts that he inked.
Yeah, they really were. Like that's one of the things that he did kind of well, is that he did identify players who were going to grow into their contracts. The thing is, like, sometimes that gamble didn't really work out, like with Bargnani. Yeah. Like, I think that he gambled that that Bargnani would have similar kind of progression that we saw from Amir and from DeRozan, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah. And Patrick Patterson is somebody who's just really turned his season around. I think if you look at the first month and a half of the season, he's shooting like 25% from three, if that. The confidence is just not there, and he's just being very non-productive on either end of the floor. And he was visibly frustrated. I think today we saw, or just generally over the last couple of months, he's been a lot better. Starting in, I'd say, first week of December up until now, he's been fantastic. Tonight he got into it with Jamaal Crawford, who was just being a total douche.
He was. Yeah, I don't really understand, because like you don't really see that from either one of those players. Like that seemed out of character for both of them. But I'm glad that we saw it from him. Like I'm glad to see a little bit of fight, because going into the season, he seemed really discouraged. Like he wasn't shooting, he wasn't really doing much. He was just kind of like standing there on offense, moving the ball around the perimeter. He wasn't really looking to score. So after seeing him be so passive early on, it's really good to see some fight in him, even if it didn't manifest itself in the most positive way.
Yeah, and I generally, think the NBA has gotten a little soft with the flagrants, and they're calling flagrants, which totally should not be flagrant. But what Crawford did to Patterson underneath the hoop there after Kyle Lowry got the offensive rebound, he got up and pretty much decked him, very, very consciously, and exactly just did not intend to box him out. Just it was an actual physical bit of an assault, and the referee was right there who called the foul. They reviewed the play for a flagrant, and if there's that's a flagrant if I ever saw a flagrant, not the stuff where you like hack a guy on the arm and you call a flagrant.
Yeah, it sends a really weird message, because the message that kind of sends is, as long as you don't hit a guy in the head, then anything is fair game. Because that's the only reason that Crawford didn't get called for a flagrant, because it was just the body. It was body to body. Yeah. So I don't think that that's the precedent that the NBA really should be setting if they're trying to clean up the game, or keep it clean. They've already cleaned it up. So I really wish that they would have given a flagrant there. But, I mean, I grew up watching 90s basketball, so I'm not really mourning that too much. Like, I'm not really too upset about that not being a flagrant.
Yeah. So speaking of 90s basketball, Charles Oakley was in the crowd today. You see him?
Yeah, I did see him. I can only imagine what he thought about that play. Because like that to him, like that's just like that was what we used to do in practice. Like that's not a flagrant foul. That's nothing.
Yeah. No. What do you think of the whole clear path, 2 points, 2 free throws down the possession? Do you think that's a positive move by the NBA?
I think it is in theory. I think in practice it really hasn't been because like it's supposed to be there to speed up the game, and if you review it every time you call it, you're not actually speeding up the game. Like all that you're doing is just actually slowing it down.
That's very true. Because it never seems to be just a straight up call. It just always seems to go to review. I'd say 90% of the time they call that, it goes to review.
Yeah, and I think that the way to fix that is just nice and simply, if you're committing an intentional foul to stop a fast break, just make it 2 shots in the ball. Like, don't worry about who's ahead of who. If you're fouling to stop a fast break, then make that the punishment, or just get rid of it entirely. But don't, like, if you want to speed up the game, don't add in all these reviews because you're having the exact opposite effect.
Yeah, and I would vote for the latter. I'd say just get rid of it. I mean, if somebody fouls you on the break, so be it. I mean, it's not intentional fouls are common, and if you're gonna do that, then you gotta heavily penalize like intentional free throws through when a team kind of does hack a Jordan and slows the game down to a crawl. You can't penalize one and not the other because they're both detrimental to the game. If you can't just argue it one way.
Yeah, absolutely. And they both slow the game down. So if you really want to speed the game up, like punish both of them the same or don't punish either one of them at all and just get rid of all these ridiculous reviews. I was actually really glad to see, too, that the Raptors didn't really employ the hack of Jordan because I don't like it. I don't think it's a good strategy, and I think that it's boring to watch. Yeah. So I'm really glad that the Raptors, I think they might have done it once or twice, but they definitely use it sparingly.
Yeah. Well, the rule that I would like to see the NBA institute is the college. You gotta, if you miss your first free throw, you don't get a second one.
That would actually be really interesting. I think that would really get rid of the intentional fouling. I think that it would hurt the Raptors just because they're so reliant on free throws. I think that might be a rule change that would actually hurt them as they're constructed right now. But I wouldn't be too opposed to it.
And I think a rule change like that would have a lot of effect on historical scoring records. Suddenly, you can't look at 30 points per game in the mid 90s to 30 points per game if that rule was instituted. It would totally dent the way you would look at those things.
Yeah, it absolutely would. But I think that any rule change really does that. And I think that. I think that you can't really kind of keep the game the same for nostalgia purposes. Like you want to try to keep improving it and having the best product possible because your competition is doing the same thing. Yeah. Like the baseball and hockey and football, like they're always trying to improve their product. So basketball has to stay on top of that.
Yeah. I think one thing that has changed, not officially but somewhat unofficially, is the assist. I think we've become a lot more lenient in what counts as an assist. I think by today's standards, John Stockton would have had 1.5 times the assists he ended his career with. Because at that time, if you didn't just feed a guy and he just took one step without dribbling and hit a jump, dunk the ball, that was an assist. Now you see a guy catch the ball, size somebody up for like a second, make a quick move like for a jumper, and that's an assist.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right about that. I've actually been looking at with the increase in Jonas's assists, I've been looking at his passing, and some of the stuff that he's being credited with assists for is definitely questionable. Like he will throw it to DeRozan, who will blow past a closing out defender, with one dribble, take 2 steps, and finish through contact. And Jonas will somehow get an assist for that, even though really technically DeRozan created that shot himself.
Yeah. It's like the old Arvydas Sabonis assist. Now that was an assist.
Yeah, exactly. Like what I would like to see considered an assist is just, you find somebody under the rim and he scores, that's an assist. You get somebody a catch and shoot 3, that's an assist. But if he does something like he pump fakes and gets a defender to fly by and he takes a dribble, that's not an assist anymore. Like that's something that you did to create the space for the shot.
My whole thing is the dribble bit. It's like if you have to dribble to create your shot, then that's not really an assist. So like on a pick and roll, if you feed somebody and he has to dribble to for the hoop and score there, fine, that's fine. But if you gotta swing it to the wing and the guy has to like dribble to evade a defender and then hit the three, to me that's not. It's got to be like almost in one motion, not four separate motions.
Yeah, I think the change has been brought on by the people who are keeping track of the stats more than anything official.
Exactly.
Because it's always been a home team, there's always been a home team advantage with that. Like if you look at splits for point guards, usually they get a lot more assists at home than on the road. And so I think that has just kind of been an unofficial thing, so I don't really know how you'd even combat it. It's kind of annoying, but I have no idea how you would change it because it's always going to be left up to people to decide what actually constitutes an assist and what doesn't.
Yeah. So before we got sidetracked, before I took us on this tangent, we were talking about Patrick Patterson and how he's shooting 40% during this winning streak, I should say. 8.4 points, a complete turnaround of his season in my view at least. And confidence is obviously the number one thing that I think he's improved on. But just overall, like my whole theory is that for the Raptors to achieve their goals, to exceed their goals, they got to have Patrick Patterson and Terrence Ross producing at high levels. And if they want to meet their goals, they got to at least have one of those guys producing at high levels. And on a night like tonight, when you have both these guys going, the Raptors become a really, really threatening team in any conference.
Absolutely. The thing that really holds them back is consistency with outside shooting. Teams can really pack the paint against them when Ross and Patterson aren't hitting their jump shots. So they're kind of like, they're not the engine that drives the offense. That's obviously Lowry and DeRozan, but they might be more important than those guys in some circumstances, just because Lowry and DeRozan can't do anything if they're constantly facing multiple defenders, and it's Patterson and Ross who have to keep those multiple defenders off of them.
Yeah, and as far as they're hitting those outside threes, man, I think it allows DeRozan and Lowry that much more freedom. And in the playoffs, if they're hitting their threes, the Raptors will beat most teams. And just looking at we're getting a little sidetracked, but let's just play this along. Right now, would you let's pick an interesting one here. Raptors versus Heat. Who'd you pick in that series right now?
Oh, it's always tough to make a call like that right now because the Raptors are playing so well, but I'm going to go Raptors. In fact, I'll go out and I'll say right now, with the way that the Raptors are playing, the only teams I would say that they can't beat in the East would probably be the Cavaliers, and I would really hesitate to pick them over the Bulls. But with the way that they've been playing lately, I'd be pretty confident picking them over anybody else, which is a big change because, I mean, as recently as a month ago, I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah. Well, I think what might have changed since a month ago is the Hawks. You might have picked the Hawks over the Raptors, but at this point, again, I don't know. The team's playing really well, so I would say I'd agree. Say so. Cleveland, Chicago, I think we've lost to them, twice already, so we can't possibly pick that. I think the Hawks they could take just because the Hawks don't really have that superstar. But the Bulls and Cavs, obviously Cavs have LeBron, the Bulls have Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler and all that. So yeah, I'd say I'd agree with you. I don't think I'm scared of the Wizards anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be scared of the Wizards. And I'm not all that worried about the Hawks because last playoffs, the Hawks kind of showed that they had an Achilles heel when teams went under screens on Jeff Teague all year long, and icing them, which the Raptors are doing this year, is basically the same thing. So basically, like, you turn Jeff Teague into a mid-range shooter, and the Hawks' offense really, really struggles. And the Raptors' new pick-and-roll scheme is designed to do exactly that. So I'm really not all that worried about the Hawks anymore.
Yeah, and when that does happen, they tend to go to Schroeder, who kind of has the same problem. He's not a fantastic outside shooter, so they don't really have that three-point shooting that they need at the point guard spot.
Exactly. They need to get penetration from the point guards, and that's one thing the Raptors have been doing really well. Like, Lowry and Joseph individually have been great, and then the pick-and-roll scheme has been a lot more conservative, and so it breaks down less, and it tends to keep point guards, 12 to 15 feet out from the hoop on those pick and rolls. So the Hawks I'm really not all that worried about. I mean, it would basically be like Paul Millsap goes off and wins the series for them individually. But outside of that, I think that the Raptors could take them in 6.
And when it does break down for the Raptors, you have some real shot blocking and presence in there with Bismack Biyombo for sure. And as you said earlier, Valanciunas has improved his paint presence.
Yeah, he really has, and I think even the last little while, like even Patterson is doing a pretty good job with that. Like he was the one who had the highlight block in the game today. I thought I believe it was Jordan on a drive, and Patterson was the one who rejected him. So even he's been blocking some shots lately.
Yeah. All right, so before we sign off, let's just very briefly look ahead to the this week's schedule, which I don't know, which looks to be fairly easy. All home games, and we'll start off with Washington on Tuesday. The Raptors have beaten them 3 times already. As you said, Beal remains hobbled, and they're still suffering with some injury concerns with Gary Neal, who's on and off, and Alan Anderson's been out. So they've disappointed all season long. I think in the last podcast somebody asked me like, what do you see happening with Washington? And I'm like, they're a team that, much like last year, could easily, when healthy, go on a run to win 10 out of 12. But I just don't see that run starting at this point, given their condition.
Yeah, I don't think that the Wizards really want to see the Raptors at this point in time. I think that we'll see another statement game from DeRozan. I think that he's going to go all out again, and I really don't see the Wizards beating them. I think that it'll be a double-digit victory for the Raptors.
Yeah, but they are coming around a little bit. They beat Washington, they beat Chicago, and they beat Indiana, both on the road, which were very, very impressive results for them. And then they beat Miami at home as well. So they are playing better than they were when the Raptors last faced them. It's just given the way the Raptors are playing, you just don't pick against them at home against a team who's lost 3 times to them.
Exactly, especially with that extra motivation. Like they really do seem like they just want to completely destroy the Wizards this year. So I think that motivation is going to go a long way.
Yeah. And then you got the Knicks. Do you remember the last Knicks game we played at the ACC? It was the whole Carmelo Anthony stepping out of bounds.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. So what's this time around the Knicks are what, like 22 and 24, something like that? Yeah, exactly, 22 and 24. This game it's not a back-to-back for them. This game is on TNT, another nationally televised game for the Raptors. I don't believe this one was on TNT before, but it was picked up fairly recently, I want to say. 8 o'clock tip-off on Thursday night, TNT. Prime time for the Raptors again.
Yeah, I think that's really good that they're starting to get that recognition. I think it's because both of the teams, like the Knicks are better than expected, the Raptors are better than expected. So I think that we'll probably see a few more of their games get picked up. And I think the Raptors take this one too. Like the Knicks, they've had a pretty good 2016, but the last couple of games, they faltered. Like they just got destroyed by the Clippers. Yeah. Like they got completely dismantled by the Clippers, who the Raptors just completely dismantled. So I think that they'll have a pretty easy time of it.
And then they got blown out the night after in Charlotte. The final score is 97-84. But I saw that game, and it was not close. I think Charlotte was up by 20 at some point in that game.
Yeah, they're really struggling because I think one of the things that rookie coaches or sophomore coaches, like coaches who haven't coached for very long, I think one of the things that they have trouble dealing with are injuries, because suddenly you have to completely redo your rotation. And so right now, Derek Fisher's kind of going through all of that. So I think that they'll still be kind of in a state of flux. So yeah, I really, really don't see the Raptors losing that one.
Yeah. I think that last loss against the Knicks at home has it's got to sting. And then finally you close out the week with Detroit on Saturday night, another Saturday night game, 6:30 p.m. tip-off. It's an odd one. Detroit, man, 23 and 21, fighting for that playoff positioning in the East. What are they at? 7th spot right now. Three teams tied for 6th, 7th, 8th. All 8 games back of the Cavs. 3 teams at 23 and 21, Pacers, Pistons, and the Heat. And Pistons are, at this point, you would kind of pick them over the Wizards for that final playoff spot, do you think?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think that they'll make it. If the Raptors are going to lose the game, I think it's going to be that one. I think that there's a lot of things that might factor into that. Like, for example, the All-Star teams are going to be announced on the 28th. So if Reggie Jackson doesn't get in, I can see him maybe having a little bit of extra motivation in the game immediately after it. So maybe he tries to go off. Same thing with Andre Drummond if Andre Drummond doesn't make it for whatever reason. And plus the Pistons, I mean, they're inconsistent, but they're a tough out. Yeah. But I mean, the Raptors are firing on all cylinders right now. So I'm going to go ahead, and as long as they're at home, I'm going to say that they're going to win. So yeah, I think it's going to be another easy win.
Yeah, I think talent-wise, the Pistons are right there. I think I don't know, it's a chemistry issue, coaching issue, whatever it is. They should be better than what they are. If you look at their roster with Ilyasova, Morris, Drummond, Reggie Jackson, KCP, and even Stanley Johnson's playing well for them, and Aaron Baines, who I love, by the way. All these guys should form a formidable threat in the East, but they just haven't been able to put it together. They always go on these like 2-game, 3-game losing streaks for some reason, which kind of kills their momentum after winning 3 and 4. They can never kind of seem to find that let's win 3 out of 4 games consistency.
Yeah, I think they only have a couple of guys that you can really count on over and over again. Like you can count on Jackson, you can count on Drummond, but everybody else is kind of up and down, especially the Morris twin that they have. I think it's Marcus that they have. I can never remember which one is which, but he is really, really up and down. So I think that he kind of determines their fate a lot of the time, in much the same way that a guy like Patterson or Ross will determine the Raptors' fate. So that's kind of what plagues them, and I have a feeling that they tend to perform worse on the road as a result.
Yeah. What do you think of Aaron Bain? That's a player I really like. Evaluate him for me.
I really like guys like him. Yeah. Like I was a big Hansbrough fan, so I really like the athletic enough, but not super athletic, and like they're big and they're not that skilled, so they make up for it by being really physical. Like I love those guys. I know it's not realistic, but I would gladly watch a team full of guys like that beat the tar out of an opponent. Oh. Yeah. Oh, I don't think that they would win. I don't think they'd be a good team, but I think that it would be entertaining to watch at least for a little while.
I think Aaron Baines is a better offensive player than Tyler Hansbrough, man. The guy, once he gets into traffic, he actually has several moves like shoulder fakes, which allow him to actually score with at least determination and rather than just throwing it up there, which was what kind of Hansbrough did.
Yeah, true. It might not be a fair comparison. Like he might be a better comparison to somebody like a Steven Adams or something like that than Hansbrough.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but I love guys like that.
Yeah. So it's I think we're picking a 3-0 week. I want to say 3-0. Is that what we're doing?
I'm going 3-0. Okay. I don't think that the Raptors lose until they go away from the ACC.
Yeah. And we'll talk about what away from the ACC means in next week's podcast when the Raptors go on a 6-game road trip facing Western Conference teams to start and then coming back out east. It's going to be some fun times. All-Star coming up soon. We'll talk about that in the next podcast. But for now, Gavin, thanks for coming on, man.
No problem. Anytime. You just let me know.
All right. And again, just a reminder, if you do enjoy the Raptors Republic podcast, check out Blake and Will's Raptors Weekly Extra podcast, which airs on Friday mornings. In addition to that, if you take a moment and vote for us on iTunes and Android and Switch and Stitcher, I think it's called, and give us a rating. Tell us what you think. And also, thanks to our sponsor, Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. Give Brian a call for your personal injury needs. Other than that, we'll talk to you guys next week. Listener, thank you for listening, and see you next week.